Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Now, after discussion on the various aspects of the normal drug effect, now we are going to see some sort of variable drug effects or variation in drug responsive. For convenience, we have divided into three parts. Today, we're going to discuss with the first part now. We know drug effects, the most common one is the therapeutic effect, and obviously therapeutic effect is with the therapeutic doses. This is again of three types. First is usable and desirable. We do need and we want such effects. For example, analgesic effect. Analgesic effects may be due to opioids or maybe due to paracetamol, aspirin, etc. Second is usable but undesirable. Okay, there are some effects which can be used at time, but at the same time, other effects are also produced which in that particular patient we don't want. Otherwise, those will become the side effects in that particular patient. Now, I will explain it with the example. Antihistamines, which are used for allergy and for flu, etc., they also produce sedation. But in such patients who are taking antihistamine for allergy and flu, sedation will become the side effects. However, the same sedation, that effect may be used for some irritable children also. Now, the side effects of one patient may become the use of the other patient. So, they are usable but undesirable in some patients, but in others they become the use. But in children, obviously, now if there is dryness of mouth, now that will become the side effects. So usually such things are a relative terminology. In few patient uses, in other their side effects, and vice versa. The third one is effects, therapeutic effects, no doubt, but they are neither usable nor desirable. For example, retention of urine. We will see inshallah later on. Atropine, you have heard about that in physiology, that is blocker of acetylcholine. One of the side effects of retention of urine is of atropine. Now, obviously, such effects although produce, but neither we use these effects nor it is desirable, but it is produced. Similarly, cardiac arrhythmias by the sympathomimetic drugs, adrenaline or similar drugs. So obviously, cardiac arrhythmias is also not a use, so neither usable nor desirable. Now, apart from the therapeutic effects, let's see the non-therapeutic effects. And first one is the toxic effects. So obviously, this is with the toxic doses. With toxic doses, usually remember these toxic effects will be the exaggerated therapeutic effects. For example, heparin is an anticoagulant. With the toxic effects of heparin, bleeding will start. That will be the toxic effect. And actually, this is the exaggerated therapeutic effect of the anticoagulation. Similarly, insulin, it is lowering the blood sugar level in the blood. But if in a higher concentration is producing hypoglycemic coma, that will be the toxic effects and exaggerated effects. Similarly, certain hypnotics, you have already heard about the benzodiazepine or barbiturate, etc. So they produce here depression. So in therapeutic doses, they are just producing slight drowsiness or sleepiness only. But in toxic effects, they may produce depression of the level where respiratory center depression or cardiovascular system depression may occur. Other example is prazosin. It is an alpha blocker, alpha receptors, one of the adrenergic type of receptors, and present especially on the vessels, both arterioles and when used, usually prazosin is used to lower the blood pressure in hypertensive patient. But if in higher doses, it dilates the veins, that will produce the postural hypotension. Similarly, digoxin, you have already known in physiology, it is used in cardiac failure, but it can produce cardiac arrhythmias, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, and some sort of visual disturbances. All are due to toxic effects of toxic levels of digoxin. Drug interactions may also occur related to abnormal responses. Abnormal in the sense the effects may be increased or decreased. Now, by drug interaction, we already know when two or more than two drugs are given together, they can affect the effects of each other. So, these drug interaction may be at the level of pharmacokinetic or pharmacodynamic. For example, maybe increasing or decreasing the absorption. Similarly, at the level of plasma protein binding and elimination, means metabolism and excretion. So all the effects may be increased or decreased by one drug to the other drug. Similarly, pharmacodynamic interaction. They may be simple additive. Additive means 1 plus 1 make 2. For example, I have just told you certain hypnotics, barbiturates and benzodiazepine. So individually, barbiturates produce severe depression with therapeutic dose at their own intensity. And similarly, when benzodiazepine are given alone, they will also produce of their own intensity severe depression. But when they will be combined, the level of depression of CNS will be doubled. So that is addition, additive. Synergistic interaction, synergism. So actually here, when individually drugs are used separately, they can produce the effects, a reasonable effects you can say. But when they are combined, the combination now can produce excellent effects. And one of the important example is of combination of penicillin with the aminoglycosides. So when penicillin used alone, obviously they are having effects against certain types of receptor, what we say antimicrobial spectrum. Similarly, when we are using aminoglycosides alone, they are also having their own specific antimicrobial spectrum. But when we combine both these groups, now the bacterial spectrum will be very much widened. So this is synergism. Next is the potentiation. Now in potentiation, usually one drug is having a very negligible effect. But when it's combined with the other drug, the combination now can produce much more exaggerated, we can say, or more useful intensity of drug effect. Now, this is, for example, there is combination of sulfonamides, co-trimoxazole, combination of sulfamethoxazole with the trimethoprim. Individually, when they are used, they can produce effects very minor. For example, especially trimethoprim will be having very minimal effects. But when we combine it, this combination of this sulfamethoxazole and trimethoprim, commonly known as co-trimoxazole, now it has an excellent antimicrobial effect. Similarly, antagonistic effect. You already know about the antagonistic effect, drug antagonism, where the one drug can oppose or can block the effects of the other drugs. We have already discussed this antagonism. Now, before going to further abnormality or variation in the drug responses, let's summarize the regulation of the receptors so that abnormal responses can be well understood. Remember, there is a potential damage to the cells or to the tissue with the excessive stimulation of high concentration of calcium, which can initiate cell death. There are several mechanisms which are involved to protect a cell from this excessive stimulation by cell modulation or receptor regulation. Similarly, Some receptor, particularly voltage gated channels, they require a rest period after stimulation before they can be used again. During this recovery phase, usually they are said to be refractory or unresponsiveness, because during that period no new response can be seen. There is another example of G protein coupled receptors. These responses to ligands also often attenuate with time, so we have to give proper interval. Now let's have some explanation of diagram. Usually the G protein linked, the 7 type serpentine. Anyhow, in resting phase, the ligand has not yet bind to outer side of the G protein coupled receptor. However, inside, if we see G protein, which is having usually 3 subunits, alpha, beta, and gamma, especially GDP is attached with the alpha subunit. So all is in resting phase. But when this ligand bind, it will be active like this. Now, after binding of the agonist with the receptor, no receptor have been activated. What will happen then? GDP, which was bound with the alpha, that will be released from here. Instead of that, GTP will bind. So that GTP bound alpha subunit, now that has become active. Before, when GDP was there, it was inactive state alpha subunit. Now with the combination of this one here, with the alpha, it has become active now. Now when it is active, it will get separated from its other beta and gamma units. Now it is free from that, and it will move towards effectors. So after dissociation from the other, the GTP bound active subunit moves and modulate the effectors. These effector modulation actually may be adenyl cyclase activity increase or decrease, or phospholipase increase activity, or IP3 anisotropyl triphosphate that is increased, or there may be increase or decrease in calcium influxes. For example, increased calcium channel activity and decreased calcium channel activity. After that, when it has produced a change in the effector, modulate the effector. Now this GTP will be hydrolyzed. It will be again converted into GDP. After hydrolysis, it has become again GDP. The moment it is instead of GTP, again it has been converted to GDP. This combination GDP with alpha will become again inactive, and it will again get burned with its beta and gamma like that, again coming to resting phase. So inactivation receptor again converted into resting state. Now we will see diagrammatically again explanation of the changes in the response of the drug. First of all, how the effects can be reduced or decreased. So after continuous exposure of the receptor due to agonist, phosphorylation stimulation occur. This phosphorylation actually when happens, that will actually lead to stimulate the beta arrestin. That beta arrestin will be induced in between the receptor and the G proteins. Now G protein will not be attached with the receptor, so there will be no further effect, because the whole effect was produced when G proteins were coupled with the receptor. So no coupling occurred then. So it will lead to reduce the effect. So now what we will do? So obviously we will give dosage interval. How? We will stop agonist given. When there will be no exposure, no after continuous, now there is no exposure. So what will happen? Beta-arrestin, which was present here, induced in between, that affinity of beta receptor is reduced, and that beta-arrestin will leave the place. And now again, G protein will couple with the receptor. But this is only when this phosphorylation will be finished. How it will be finished? The enzyme phosphatase will dephosphorylate it, and then only G protein will couple with the receptor and normal response will start again. Now, usually the mechanism involved in the downregulation is actually internalization of the receptor. And this happens actually when there is constant exposure of the receptor due to presence of the agonist. So the receptor arrestin complex which was formed, we have seen previously, that will accelerate the endocytosis of the receptor present on the cell membrane. That will be endocytosis occur, coated pit is there. So coated pit actually then goes to the endosomes. But first of all, these receptors through endocytosis, they have been taken inside the cells, internalization occur, and downregulation occur. So there is degradation of the receptor, and that degradation occur in the lysosome. Recycling of receptor can occur because the coated pit which has gone inside into endosomes now, if we give dosage interval, then actually phosphatase leads to dephosphorylation of the which was there. Dephosphorylation, as we have seen previously also, occur, that will again convert the receptor into normal state, resting state, and that will again available for the new response. This to the curve we can explain it. If we give the agonist, especially the beta agonist, the response to beta agonist will be like that, because that lead to increased cyclic AMP response. And then after this constant exposure, there is gradual decrease in the response, and ultimately that reduction lead to no response. So non-responsiveness means desensitization. Now the membrane cannot be sensitized again, and that we have seen occur due to phosphorylation. So that phosphorylation now can be finished only if we give the break. When we give the break actually, then only, as we have seen previously, recycling of the receptor occur. Second exposure now can be seen because now the membrane will repolarize. So these variation in the effects is seen due to modulation of the receptors. So as we have seen, decreased effect due to downregulation, and this desensitization can lead to produce either tolerance, or refractoriness, or tachyphylaxis, and resistance. All these four we will discuss in due course of time. Or it may be opposite, increased effect, which is an upregulation of the receptor. So increased number of receptors occur when receptor activation is blocked. So opposite to the downregulation. In downregulation, the receptor is continuously activated. In here upregulation, the receptor is blocked for a longer period, for a long time. Usually it may take several days to develop such types of blockade by the pharmacologically antagonist or by denervation even. So we have seen continuous activation of the receptor effector system may lead to depletion of some essential substrate, which were actually very much needed for the effector stimulation. So when there is depletion of these essential substrate, effects will decrease. The example is with the nitroglycerin. With the nitroglycerin continuous presence, gradual there will be depletion of the thiol cofactors, so which is essential for the activity of the nitroglycerin. So then tolerance develops due to depletion of the thiol cofactor. Now this tolerance to nitroglycerin can be corrected if we this resupply this thiol cofactor, and that is supplied through glutathione. So glutathione will provide the thiol cofactor, and in this way this tolerance can be reversed. Now, desensitization is of two types, homologous and heterologous. Homologous only desensitization limited to only one type of agonist. So tolerance to one type of agonist only. In heterologous, this different types of agonists are involved, which usually producing similar type of response. For example, opioids, tolerance to one type of opioid will lead to tolerance to other types also. So having same site of mechanism, same site of effect, tolerance can be developed for all one. So heterologous desensitization. So obviously, if, for example, intestinal contraction by histamine, tolerance develop, a tolerance to histoloquine will also develop, because here the mechanism is shared. Similarly, if this exposure is frequent within short interval, then tachyphylaxis will occur. So again, with tachyphylaxis, several mechanisms are responsible for the development of tachyphylaxis. Now in the next lecture, inshallah, we will go some sort of detailed mechanism of tolerance and tachyphylaxis, anemia resistance, etc. Thank you very much.